Again, this story is going to be called The Fall of Bloodglove and the War Hag. It's going to be it's going to sort of a fantasy story, and again from the perspective of the goblin that's seeking revenge. So let's just dive in right here and see what we can do with it. As she raced toward the castle on her bare feet, let's name her Wivella. Wivella's mottled gray goblin skin glowed with the blue magic of the artifact that may have changed her forever. She wasn't going to need forever for what she had planned. Alright. Not to be cliche, but your attitude and outlook truly are an inspiration. I'm working on my novella again today. Broke 15,000 words now and feeling very positive. That's awesome, man. I really think that's great. I know you had mentioned earlier about having your outline done, and we're trying to kind of get motivated to get going and keep going. 15,000 words is a really good start. It's the kind of thing where you probably have built some momentum that's going to keep you going. So that's really cool to hear. And of course, we're all in this together, so we gotta keep encouraging each other. All right, she wasn't going to need forever for what she had planned. Okay. The walls stood tall and white, with stones that showed no evidence of the spilled blood these dirty creatures were responsible for. Okay. The arrows flew at once. Okay. Now you can talk anytime you want, man. Check out what you wrote here. I have about 7 chapters all fully planned and 5 of those written. That's excellent. I'll let you do your thing now because I'm in the flow as well. Do you have a rough plan for this story, just letting it unfold naturally? I am just letting it go, so I don't really have a... I wrote down some names and jotted a couple ideas about... maybe what the creatures looked like and that kind of thing. A little bit of background that I don't even think I'm going to use in the actual story, although it informs what I'm thinking about the characters. So just to kind of give me a framework, but other than just letting it play out in my head, I don't really have an idea of exactly how it's going to go. So we'll just kind of see how it flows here. And again, feel free to comment at any time. It's no big deal to interrupt as I'm going through. It's not an interruption. The arrows flew at once. A rain of death on every side of her. Okay. All right. Rain of death on every side of her. Most of the arrows missed. Vela dodged the thicker and darker clouds of falling arrows. but some found their home. Some found their target, let's say. They had to really. Human archers were the deadliest creatures ever to plague the land. If it were not so, what did I name this guy? Blecht would still be alive to love her. Alright, so we have a goblin, female goblin warrior that has lost her love there. Alright. The magic that surrounded, I know I misspelled that. That surrounded, good grief, let me see if I can accidentally spell this right. There we go. The magic that surrounded her, like blue burning fumes, stopped some of those arrows. But not all. The sharp points tore through her tough hide, where they hit in sections not covered by her armor. Black blood oozed from the wounds, but she dared not pull those razor points from her muscle. Okay. Next, tar-covered projectiles ignited in the spoons, I don't think that's the right word, of their catapults and hurled through the air as they arched, no, it'd be arced, as they arced toward her. These were easier, I guess I should make that the same paragraph. Alright, because we're still talking about these projectiles. These were easier to dodge, but when they exploded against the ground, when they exploded against the ground, the flames spilled out in all directions like waves of fire. Some of the stuff caught her and burned patches of raw pink wound on her, in her flesh. She did not slow to take the time to smother the burning tar. To do so might be smart, but it would make her a stationary target. Her own welfare. I just do what's natural, but sometimes it's hard. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Speaking of paragraphs, any advice on when a new paragraph is needed? That's a really solid question because it's one I keep asking myself. I just do what I just do what's natural, but sometimes it's hard to tell. That is an excellent point, and it's one that I think about a lot. A few things. When you're dealing with nonfiction, it's a little different because when you're dealing with nonfiction, it's better to go strictly by ideas. So each time you switch to a different idea, a different major point, a different sub point to the main article. In nonfiction, you do your splits there. Now you can still be creative with your paragraphs in nonfiction, but a lot of times it's better to go a little stricter with the ideas. With fiction, there's a few things to consider. Some of the basic stuff that were talked about in school still apply, obviously. A paragraph can be any length. It has a main idea sentence. In fiction, that may be a little different, but there is a central idea to that paragraph that you're trying to get across before you move to the next bit, and it can be however many sentences. So that loose with each idea structure still applies, but then there's also, with fiction, there's another idea about rhythm, and some of that has to do with paragraph length. So whereas in a story like this, I might have 2 or 3 paragraphs that might naturally go together just for the flow of the reading, it's sometimes better to split them smaller so that the reader's eye doesn't get tired with a wall of text. Another reason to do that is if it's an action scene, sometimes quicker, shorter sentences and shorter paragraph kind of moves the reader faster through, so it feels like the story is moving faster, which is what you want when you're dealing with an action scene in particular. The same is true in a tense scene when you're dealing with a thriller, or a scary scene when you're dealing with horror. A lot of times, cutting paragraphs shorter, sentences shorter, even incomplete sentences in a couple cases, can give that things are going too fast kind of feel that you want in order to get those things across. If you have too many quick, short paragraphs like that, though, it also creates a bad rhythm because it just feels like you're doing the same beat over and over again, same length of sentence, same length of paragraphs. So sometimes it's good to have a couple longer paragraphs thrown in the middle there to kind of break up the pattern, so it doesn't feel like you're lulling the reader to where they're not interested anymore. So a lot of interest can be done different ways with paragraph length. I was experimenting with Kindle Vella, which is sort of the online serial thing. I don't think I'm going to continue with that, though, just because of some of the things I'm dealing with and the time I have. But if you're dealing with like a thing like Wattpad or Kindle Vella or something like that, where people are reading on their phone and they're reading short episodes, a lot of times it's better to keep the episode shorter, and it's better to keep the paragraph shorter. So in that case, the actual format lends itself to shorter paragraphs. So quick, short paragraphs, even though that might not be where you would naturally split things when you had a book that someone might read on an e-reader or in a paperback. But in that case, the format actually demands it a little bit. And then you kind of think about audience too. So if you're doing a larger scholarly work, then a few longer paragraphs are actually better for that type of reader. If you're dealing with young adult and that kind of thing, you want to break things up a little more. Romance, young adult, certain types of horror kind of lend themselves a good deal to more dialogue, and a lot of times dialogue splits up better. So it's better sometimes to split paragraphs by each person who speaks, and so you can kind of establish the rhythm of how they're talking by where you split the paragraphs as well. All right, I think Armand jumped in here, my good friend Armand. Okay, all fantastic advice. Appreciate it. I do try and vary the lengths and stuff. Sometimes I overwrite and do, when I edit, break things up a lot. That's probably smart. And a lot of times you can mess yourself up by thinking too much about those mechanics while you're writing, and it can get in the way of actually doing the story. In edits, do you sometimes join two like-minded ideas into one paragraph, or do you cut a longer idea into two or more to get more impact? That's Armand Rosamelia's question. A lot of times I'm setting the paragraphs as I go. So the time that I would change things around, a lot of times I'm handling that in the first draft. In the edit, what really throws me off is when I start adding or taking away material. So the changes in paragraphs a lot of times have to do with what I'm adding. So if I feel like I didn't describe something enough, or I'm missing a beat, like we moved from one fight to another and I didn't really resolve something, then I'll add several lines in. When I do that, that's when I kind of have to adjust paragraphs a little bit, because suddenly a paragraph that's supposed to be action got too long, and I need to see if I can split it up or if it just needs to stay that way. And then a lot of times I'll mess things up by taking things out, and a lot of times that's harder for a writer to do, is to look at paragraphs they really like and realize this isn't really moving the story. I got to take all this beautiful description out, or these people have talked for 2 pages and it's lovely and it's witty dialogue and it's really funny, but it really isn't doing anything for the story itself. So I got to cut out all that dialogue down to just a few lines. And when I do big cuts like that, a lot of times I have to that's when I need to combine ideas to make the paragraphs make sense, because suddenly what used to be a long paragraph is down to one sentence, and that sentence by itself doesn't stand on its own. It's just not that strong. So a lot of times I'll attach it to another paragraph that way. So adjusting paragraphs for me a lot of times is secondary, in the sense of it becomes necessary because of other edits I've done. I appreciate you being here, Armand. I always appreciate your support in life and on stream there. Okay. Her own, and again, anybody, anytime, please jump in. So you're never interrupting me or not in a way I don't mind. Oh, by the way, Jay, I started streaming my own writing on Twitch as well. I just realized I hadn't told you since I started. That's excellent, man. Are you the right idea on stream, or do you go by a different name? I guess you would be the right idea, otherwise you wouldn't be commenting as that. So that was a dumb question. So I'll check you out, man, and I'll definitely check out your VODs too and see what you did. That's good. All right. So really excited to see that. I really want more authors and writers on here, because I just think there's a lot to do, and what I'm doing with it may not be the only way to do it. So to be honest, I want more authors on here so I can steal your good ideas. So if you guys get to streaming, I'll be watching as a fan and as a co-writer, trying to figure out what might be good on here. I think this is an rising tides raise all ships kind of situation, where we can all get better together. To do so would be smart, but it would make her a stationary target. I haven't posted any VODs yet. I was just getting some experience. We'll be uploading soon, though. Well, if you've done live streams, some of those would still be on there for a certain number of days, so I'd be able to watch. I think that's what I meant by VODs, was your previous stream still there, unless you deleted them. I guess they'd still be there. Her own survival was not important beyond finishing this attack. All right. Her own survival was not important beyond finishing this attack. Okay. As the dirty humans prepared to dump rocks on her head from the top of the walls. She leapt the moat. I don't know if this castle would really have a moat, but I'll pretend like it does. She leapt the moat and crashed through one of the low windows, taking much of the stone frame inside with her. So one poor archer who probably thought he was quite safe in that window stumbled. All right, I'm going to do a comma here. All right. Stumbled backward in shock. He's still, let me do a new paragraph. We got an action scene here, so I'm breaking it into smaller paragraphs. He still tried to fire on her, but she swung her pig iron sword through his bow, snapping the wood, let's say leather, it would be leather, the leather draw, and the leather draw, sending his arrow spinning away into a dark corner. All right, forgetting her sword, she swiped. That would be 1P, I guess. She swiped her dark claws through his body, tearing away his clothing, his throat, and much of the top layers of his face. He tumbled away on the floor, bleeding and screaming. She could have easily finished killing him, but his raw agony was like music to her as she pressed on into the hallway. Several shouts carried down from above. They were trying to find where she had ended up. Wavella really wanted to kill every last one of them, but she decided the wiser move would be to cover as much ground as she could while chaos still ruled. There were plenty of humans scampering about these passages as she raced along. Most were not warriors, but rather servants who were caught in the wrong place. She cared not for any of their lives. If they served Bloodglove or his hag, they were her enemy and had contributed to the senseless slaying of her man. Blood painted human blood as red as juice from a poisonous berry painted the walls as she passed. The rest of their guts spilled out across the flagstones behind her. She could not afford the pause to enjoy the work of her revenge. Not to mention that even the dumbest humans would be able to follow the bright, bloody trail of her slaughter to track her. She had to cross the open ground of the keep in order to get to the inner palace itself. Chaos and the stink of human fear provided some cover, but not enough. She opted for no delay and fled along the wall of the smithery before she was completely exposed again. All right. Let me catch up on the chat here. Trying to break 16K this evening, almost there. That's awesome, man. I've sort of gone back and reworked the first few chapters and added more to set up the story. That's good. Set up the story better. That's good. Again, you do it however you want. sometimes it's good to plow forward and worry about some of that stuff later on. But if you're going to put it in anyway, it adds your words in, it fills out the story, and especially if it's stuff you're going to be setting up later, sometimes it's good to go back right there at the beginning and have it in there so that you know what you're setting up later. So that's always excellent. Anywhere you get your words in when you're drafting is excellent stuff. I'm really proud of you, man. I know we just met not long ago and have been talking a little bit, but I've been watching your videos on YouTube and I've kind of been enjoying seeing you kind of talk your way through what I would think of as sort of the beginning of the process. And it's cool to have you back on here too. So I'm glad we connected up and are able to share what we're going through now. All right. The cries of those who spotted her hurt her ears. The arrows and spears striking the ground in her wake threatened hold on just a moment, threatened to hurt more than just her ears. They never got a piece of her this time. And she laughed as she crashed through the oaken doors of the palace. Armored, let's say, some warriors chased behind her with weapons drawn. Armored, let's make a new paragraph here. Armored knights waited behind those doors for her, but they still cried out. I've used the word cried too many times. I'm going to need to change that when we get to the edit. But they cried out in surprise to see her there. Okay. And we'll see how she takes care of these knights. Okay, backing up here. I started this with very little planning, but I needed to sort out the setup for the payoff later on. I appreciate you have no idea how much you have helped me with approach. Immersing myself in the writing community has taught me a lot already, and just really very motivating. That's awesome. We definitely need to make that video together, though I know you're going through stuff and at the minute, so it's whenever you're comfortable. Hey man, anytime. I can sit and talk, and at worst I may have to ask you to repeat a question, but no, I'd love to do it anytime. So wherever you can connect with me online, feel free to hit me up, and we'll figure out a date sometime along the way here. Yeah, it'll be fun. I look forward to it. Armored knights waited behind those doors for, I left out a word, for her. But they cried out in surprise to see her there. Their weapons sliced into her armor and brought forth. I'll just figure out how I can record the video call and we'll sort it out. That sounds great, man. And I can probably help you out with that too if you need to figure it out. Their weapons sliced into her armor and brought forth more black blood. She employed her own cruder weapon and broke through their plating faster than she imagined they liked. Their pink hides, the color of wounded flesh in her mind, were not nearly as tough as her skin. The moment she broke through their armor, their skin parted, their organs ruptured, their bones broke, and they bled out their worthless lives. How easily they died made her all the angrier. These weak and selfish creatures had no right to end the life of a true warrior like keeps forgetting how I made up this guy's name. Blecht. At the risk of snapping her iron sword, she battered them harder to make them pay for his life. As voices of the approaching mob behind her grew louder, she raced on to stay ahead of them. A few more humans challenged her along the way, but they were quick to flee or easy to kill without Lavella having to break stride. I see the chat popping up, but sometimes I'm finishing a thought before I jump in. All right. May I ask, do you have like an author's website so I can do some background reading and get to know your achievements a bit better before conversation takes place? It's the journalist in me. Yes, it's just jaywilburn.com. So you can jump over there anytime. Also, if you can just look up on Amazon and see some work there and stuff. I'm not sure how great the information's up to date on there, but I think it's good. I've tried to keep it up to date, and you can check out the About section on this page here on Twitch, and then I connect a few things there, so you can kind of see my social media and jump over to some of those places as well if you want to dig that deep, I guess. And of course, you can ask any questions you want if you need to set some stuff up early. Alright, a few more humans challenged her along the way. Okay, thank you. I want to feel prepared. I'll prepare some material just so I know what to ask and how you can help the people who watch, etc. That sounds great, man. I'm really excited for it. I think this is going to be fun. He'll be good for both of us. All right. She skirted the throne room. All right, that's apparently not one word. No. All right, she skirted the throne room and saw a few squires standing outside those closed doors. It could be that her targets were in there and they never expected her to get this far. As she cut her way through a few squires, the others fled. This told her everything she needed to know. This was but a distraction. The real king and queen were either in the tower or on their way there. She pursued with all haste. The stairs of the tower were blocked by full-grown adult knights. This was the place then. The stairs spiraled upward, so that right-handed warriors found themselves striking the wall as they fought through that narrow space. Wavella laughed. Wavella laughed because she swung her sword left-handed and made her way up the steps as she took one knight's head after another. All right. Jay's books are amazing, especially the ones he co-wrote with Armand Rosamilia. I'm not biased at all. That's funny. Those are pretty good, actually, though. I do like the books I write with Armand Rosamilia. Again, some of those are linked in the About section of this of this channel, if you're interested in checking any of those out. We always appreciate readers and readers' money. As she took one knight's head after another. Finally, she grew impatient and used her claws and teeth to rip through every man between her and the people who needed to pay. Oh my gosh, you have the flu too as you're writing? Is that what being a writer is all about? Be right back. Need to grab my phone charger. That's great. Now, I will say, if you have the flu, it's okay to take a day off. So don't feel like you gotta don't feel like you gotta be an Iron Man and get all your writing done just to prove a point. Sometimes it's good to rest so you can come back. But all that said, and disclaimer aside, I'm really proud of you for reaching your goal today and hitting the words. Hello, man. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. All right. Finally, she grew impatient and used her claws and teeth to rip through every man between her and the people who needed to pay. All right, we'll make a new paragraph here. The last few men at the top of the stairs were older and had no helmets. All right, you write books. That's pretty cool, dude. Thanks, man. Yeah, I do have novels and short story collections and such that I sell. I do write full time. I do a few articles, and I'm a staff writer for a couple places as well. So yeah, I do that, and thank you for the compliment there. Very cool, hitting your goal. I write in sprints while listening to J2. Inspirational. Thanks. What's your most popular book? All right, that's it can vary. Probably in total sales, the Dead Song Legends series. It's a zombie series that I wrote, and it's been out a while, so that's probably why it sold well. The one that has sold the most books recently, in total, is the Vampire Christ book. So the first book of Vampire Christ. And the one that most people are enjoying right now is Room 138, which I co-wrote with Armand Rosamilia, who's here with us right now. And that one is a time travel mystery thriller that I co-wrote with him. And I think that's probably one of the best books that we've made. The ones that he and I write together seem to be pretty good and make fans happy. So probably the one that's hot right now is Room 138. And again, all those are linked in the About page on this channel if anyone wants to check those out. The last few men to top the stairs were older and had no helmets. Wavella believed these men to be the most loyal to the king and queen behind that last door. While she respected loyalty, she could not stomach devotion to those who slayed the innocent or served evil. She roared at them as they stabbed at her with long spears. Okay. She took hold of the metal points and bent them around backward. There was no room for them to turn the spears or to get an angle on the large goblin. So she batted their useless... Okay, hold on. Let me make sure I'm still... Okay. She batted their useless weapons aside and drove into them with all her force. They tried to escape along the walls, but she swept them together into her arms like a mother scooping up her children. They cried, oh, I'm doing cried again. They spit out curses and showed their ugly, dull teeth, while Vela bit through their skulls, one after the other, dumping out chunks of their brains. Alright, so that's unpleasant, but again, we're dealing with a battle here. Alright. She dropped their bodies. She dropped their bodies and spit. No, let's make it more. And vomited forth their horrid. Let's say vomited out their horrid flavor. A whimper rose from behind that last door. How dare that worthless hag show small fear now after all she had done. Vela hammered on the door with her great fists until the wood split and the hardware broke away. As the door fell, she stepped aside and the arrows fired from within bounced off the stone wall across this high passage. She rushed in and took down the archers hiding inside. There he was, that godless monster, the human king who made war against the goblins and killed her man in cold blood. He swept, alright, let's say Bloodglove swept the War Hag behind him. Vela could see he had no hope. Wavella could see he had no hope of saving his wife, but needed to feel like a man at the end all the same. What do you want, monster? He asked in a shaky voice that betrayed his terror. Wavella roared. She started in her native tongue and then broke into the common language of humans. You took him. You overwhelmed him with your numbers, and you lifted his beautiful black heart in your glove before you burned it and him. Goblins attacked us first. Our war, Wavella yelled back, was with the Grey Elves. Alright, let me put a comma there. I missed a quotation mark. Our war was with the Grey Elves, and they have no love for humans. You have love for war and hate for all creatures not human. That was your only reason. Goblins burned our villages. Villages built on land the goblin kind had ruled for thousands of years before your kind could forge metal. Well, the wars are over. You should not be here. Alright, let's spell that right. Her eyes burned as she cast their ornate bed aside. He backed into the wall hard enough to possibly crush his wife behind him. She let out another whimper, and Wavella wanted to rip her apart for it. My kind are the hog boon. We never once attacked a human settlement, but you can't tell the difference between a hobgoblin, an orc, or a hogboon. Can you? Bloodglove showed his dull teeth and said, "Is there a difference?" As she rushed forward. Okay, sorry about that. Let me check the stuff here. Okay, I'm back. Thank you, Armand. I'm done for the night now. 2,357 words written today. I'm excited about what I've written as well. That is a very respectable number. Everybody should be proud of something like that. Also, Jay Wilburn, how do you feel about making another video together or collaborative stream where we work on a children's book together? I'll have to see. My problem is that I've actually had to cut a number of projects because of what I'm dealing with. So at the moment, I don't necessarily want to. I don't necessarily want to add a project on. I appreciate the offer. I don't mind being on a video and talking about writing and that sort of thing. But I've already had to tell people no on a bunch of projects that I was already working on. So I'm down to one or two things, and just trying to get those done with what I'm dealing with. So I appreciate the offer, but I'll have to pass on that. I like the idea. It's the kind of thing I'd love to say yes to, and especially with the innovation of working on it live, because that really excites me. But again, I'm unfortunately having to say no to more things these days. As she rushed forward, he changed his tune. He changed his tune completely. The human king dropped to his knees, forgot all about his wife, and promised Wavella anything she wanted. Alright, let me get my stats back up so I can make sure my microphone's still on. I promised Wavella anything she wanted up to half his kingdom. He said all these things as she tore into him and shredded his insides into mush. The War Hag. The War Hag dropped to her knees, to her hands and knees, and crawled across the floor toward the overturned bed. Wavella tore out Bloodglove's heart last, and held the ugly red thing above her head. If I want a piece of your kingdom, I will take it for myself. The heart sizzled from the blue magic leaking out of the goblin's skin. Okay, hold on. Hope you don't mind, but I'm going to pop over to Shy Red Fox's stream for a bit and see what they're up to. I may be back, or I may go to sleep. Good luck with your story. Thanks, you, man. I appreciate you being here, and look forward to talking to you again soon. All right, the heart sizzled from the blue magic leaking out of the goblin's skin. Wavella consumed the heart despite the sour flavor of human all through it. As she turned, she spied the War Hag with her long hair, the color of straw, streaming down her narrow, bony shoulders. The hag turned up a bottle that had been scattered to the floor with other spilled items. The goblin raced forward and slapped the stuff out of the hag's hand before the creature could consume what was inside. Before the creature could consume what was inside, Wavella lifted the human queen up by her throat. The wretched creature cried, whimpered, and sniffled. The goblin turned up her lip, her gray lip, in disgust. You have quite a taste for murder until it comes to your own bedchamber. The goblin growled in the War Hag's face. You think I'll let you poison yourself and die in quiet peace. You think I'll let you poison yourself and die in quiet peace after all the nights you've slept since you stole him from me. I've never been on the battlefield. The War Hag whispered. Lies. I saw you upon a cushioned chair high on a hill as your man slaughtered hog boon children. The hag shook her head. I was just there for... I don't make war. I didn't know they were children. They were so big. They were different from you, is what you mean, War Hag. Not being a warrior does not excuse your part in his death. He defended our land, and he defended, let's say, our caves. He defended our caves and our people with his life longer than you have been alive. There is no justice in a world where you live, and he does not. Then please kill me, she begged the goblin. Make it quick if you are truly better than us. Vela showed her sharp teeth. I am better than you, but... Okay, hold on. I don't need a 9 in the middle of the word you. I am better than you, but it will be quite slow. Shouting voices rose as more human warriors charged up the spiral stairs of the tower, littered with bodies and gore. Time was up. Vela tucked the sniveling War Hag under the difference. Raid be the difference. That's funny. Thank you for the raid, man. I really appreciate it. Oh, that's so cool. Thanks so much. Hey, thanks for being back, man. I appreciate it. You guys are great. That's so awesome. All right. Well, Bella tucked the sniveling war hag under her gray arm and struck the curved wall. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for being here. I appreciate the raid. That's really awesome. That's really, really awesome. It means a lot, especially for a small streamer like me. Bella tucked the sniveling war hag under her gray arm. I need to add that in. Again, anyone feel free to talk and chat or interrupt anytime you want. It's great. And struck the curved wall with her bulk. The stone fell away and she leapt through the air to the wall. The warriors, still on the wall, looked up in shock. The great goblin, surrounded by the... He's writing a story from the goblin's perspective. I believe that is correct. Am I correct thinking you're doing some editing later on? Yeah, typically with this stream I do a writing block, an editing block of a previous story, and then a reading block of something I've finished. So this one will be tomorrow's editing block once I'm done with that, and then I do more editing off screen as well before I do the reading. The great goblin, surrounded by the residue of the artifact's magic, jumped from the wall to the ground. The land... Sorry to raid and run. No problem, man. I know it's later where you are. That's cool. Appreciate you jumping back in. That's some good stuff. The land was riddled with arrows and scorched black in several places. But Ovella planned to be long gone before the War Hag's people rallied to follow. It was time these humans learned the cost of coming after her kind. Okay.